Well, we may start the second session of the Motor Valley Festival 2026. Second session. I am Edoardo Nastri, a journalist working for the Corriere della Sera, and we will speak about mobility. Mobility that is assisted by technology, the most complicated, that collects the competences of different sectors. And in fact, today we are going to speak about autonomous driving for goods and people. And now, to understand the scope of this technology, let me give you some figures. So autonomous driving vehicles is at around $228 billion in value, and it will go beyond 350 billion by 2035. The estimated value has been expected to grow for the next 10 years in terms of global value. Now, this year is the first year where we will be checking data. We have seen many Chinese and American vehicles already circulating on the roads, and we are starting, to wonder about different aspects. In Europe, we are always lagging behind. Why is this? Why are we lagging behind on the regulatory field, but also on the technological one? And we will have many guests explaining these topics. And what will the effects of our delay be in terms of impacting the supply chain? So let's try and have some clarity thanks to the guests that we have invited to the talks. But as always, we have a start-up pitch, and I would like to invite the representative for next vehicles that will optimize the traffic and consumption. I hope the mic works. You can hear me great. Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. I have been allotted only 5 minutes, so I'll be very, very fast paced. This is next vehicle size compared to a normal city car. Now, since we have the same traffic footprint in terms of length and coverage of the roads, the sizes are far different in width and height, and namely also inside. So this vehicle can keep up to 9 passenger seating, 7 standing, and 900 liters in the boot. So it's like a third of a 12-meter long bus. On the other side, of course, the city car has only fewer passengers. So this is a modular scenario. We can be able to lock these two vehicles together depending on the traffic of the hour of the day, and we will also be able to transfer passengers in motion because these vehicles appear to be collaborative. They open up the doors, they lock together, and depending on their destinations, the passengers can move from one vehicle to the other. So once they are all occupying the same pod or vehicle going towards the airport, for example, the second one is detached and goes to pick up someone else. So costs are reduced because I can carry more passengers with more or less vehicles. This is how we dock at speed. Driverless systems are used because of this system. Right now, there is a driver, there is a human here, but then the docking, when it is used, it will lock the two vehicles together. The passengers will move from one to the other, and when together, they have an agile steering, and there is the undocking that is smooth. When the vehicle carries the passengers all in one, they unlock. When there are no seats, they can carry up to 21 passengers, maximum speed 100 kilometers. We drove on the motorway, Padua-Milan, no problems. Fast charging up to 90 kilowatt, and this is the range. We compare our vehicle to other buses. In high peak timing, buses are very efficient, but not when there are fewer passengers. In our case, downscaling has one module or two modules, and we can save around 50-60% energy if compared to a normal bus, independently if it's an ICE or an energy vehicle, an electric vehicle. We have had numerous scientific papers studied, and the system has been tested. We have a global traction in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. It has a patent. We have already filed 5 patents around the world: Europe, US, China, UAE. And so we have also achieved the homologation thanks to the TÜV Rheinland certification. Now we are opening after Shanghai also in the Far East. Thank you. And that was my pitch. Well, thank you very much, Tommaso Giacalin from Next Modular Navigation. Now let's delve into the technology, and let's ask those who have already to explore these technologies and understand how we are supposed to move forward. Let's invite Andrea Marinoni to present his keynote from Kearney. Well, many thanks for inviting me to this very interesting event. Now, let's be optimistic. This is what I wanted to stress absolutely before starting my speech. We are not dead at all, notwithstanding the competitive markets of the US and China. So today I'm going to delve on 3 main pillars. The first one is the so-called world order of mobility, so the end of the old mobility order. Then we will focus on the linear development that we had in the past and how we will grow in the future, namely an exponential growth. And then a question that I want to launch to the audience. So the role for Europe, what are the opportunities for Europe in this very complex scenario? Now, we are in a room in a very interesting tackling a very interesting topic, and we are focusing on a case. We cannot think of driverless cars without thinking of share, connected, electric vehicles. They have to be understood together, or else we lose sight of all the phenomena. Now, the context, what are the macro drivers, what is occurring. So to be able to tackle all this, we speak of the winter of demographics, what will occur in Italy, in Europe, seniors. But let me tell you what I did in these 2 weeks. I visited an energy transition company. They manufacture luxury motorbikes. They are close to this city close to Modena, and I cannot find the labor that can be working at that factory. And so we have a cobot working there. This means that we have a problem. And the problem is physical economy and namely physical AI, infrastructure, transporting things, object, people. Manufacturing also is an issue because we have to manufacture vehicles, parts, etc. So considering the future of the context, we should focus on safety, on sustainability and inclusivity, and the burden of transportation in the developing world is 30% of what I gain, and in the developed world, 15%. So we have to find a solution that is equitable and sustainable. But what about the humans? Going into the future without bottlenecks of technology, regulation, and sustainability for consumers, well, the future would be wonderful, would be rosy. But we consider we are in the future, but we have forgotten the humans in the loop, and namely the future of mobility. This is statistics that shows how safe I feel when driving on a driverless car, not that safe. So there have been some accidents. This is why we do not feel safe. And we have to overcome this aspect of safety. Now, the capital market has already voted. If we consider the AI enabler, the challenger manufacturers, the stock exchange will award those who are tech. But you might say, but we're lacking startups. And so we have studied the situation in the Silicon Valley, the venture capital. They are also tending to invest in that direction. So what do we have ahead? I have been used in the last 20 years before 2021 to see the world linearly 3.5 growth or 3% growth of automotive. That was stable, some up and downs, credits, crisis, etc. But here we are, 2019, and this is the trend. This is the tip, the poly crisis, the contamination of numerous different crises. What can we expect for the future? No longer 3% growth. 100 million of pieces wanted to be the ambition. We will not get there. So let's imagine that we will get 105. But selling iron is this. It's a stable growth. We've plateaued. Growth in Europe will never reach, as foreseen, 16 million vehicles as in 2019. This is not bad news all in all, but it is the representation of the future if considering how we have considered mobility of people on below 3.5 tons. Now, within this landscape, I don't want to be aggressive with charts and figures, but I would like you to see the differences in AI investment, US, Europe, and Italy, how much is spent in VC, venture capital, and the number of unicorns, the number of STEM degrees, and the time to market for vehicles from designing to start of production. And all of these figures show an issue. If comparing the basic metrics on technology, we are really lagging behind in Europe. These are the facts. Now, this chart will deep dive in some details since we have time constraints and since I want to remain on the broader panorama of topics. Let's focus on mobility vehicles in terms of cost, time, quality, and culture. What are the differences between the left-hand side of the table I showed you earlier, where capital does not recognize the value, and the challengers on the other side, namely those who are really intervening on future mobility. We work with all of them, and we can really see that they are different. They work differently, and especially this aspect, culture, operational, organizational models are completely different from the right to the left-hand side. So you don't want to just see how the planning and designing of a vehicle is conceived by the one or the other, but it is something that has been disrupted vis-a-vis the past tradition. So these figures show that they really go fast. Time to market, customer collection, just replying to the phone, meeting clients' requirement. There is a greater attitude and ability of being rapid in all of these aspects. And this is what we're lacking. Now, let's start to ponder on what we have in Europe. So we claimed we will never go back to 2019 levels. Autocriticism, please. On the right-hand side, you can see topics that all stem from regulations. In these few days, I really compared the regulations from the Chinese point of view, the most challenging one, and the most traditional manufacturer. Vis-a-vis the ban and the 2035 regulation, so the watershed that represents both a ban and a postponement. However, we're all agreeing on the fact that nobody is happy. So ICEs, PEVs, BEVs are not happy of the clarity offered by regulations. So the two sides all agree on the aspect that this is slowing down development, growth, etc. I look at Standard & Poor's. I look at numerous sources when preparing my slides, but considering the expectations, seeing 2 years back and today and the future, the mix is really going to become more and more difficult. We've also added plug-in vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and this is something that always stems from pillar number 1. And we've also lost the cost leadership, the technological leadership. We've lost it along the way, and this causes affordability issues. Consumers do not find the right vehicle that they consider they would be willing to pay for with a value for money aspect. So the OEMs managed to achieve profits, but now the segment A is now lost because of these new regulations. And in our country, in Europe, we have seen the Fiat model disappear, and the typical city car has made by Fiat has disappeared. So what is required right now, the right engineering, the right design, should allow us to go back to that prospect in terms of the looks and desires required in a car. And China, they want to enter our continent, 5%, and right now, and in 2033 they will be far more. And if they decide to acquire plants in Europe, the traditional OEMs in Europe acquired by China may increase further. So this is a snapshot of what the situation is in as far as Europe is concerned. Now, let me quote Silicon Valley here. The perspective is quite different. No regulations. It's not the starting point. I call this from experimentation to necessity. What do I mean? The experiment requires me to go towards that problem. With physical AI, I solve it. Example, there are not enough drivers. we do not have enough people driving. Or another problem, targeting is dirty, dull, and dangerous because of the jobs. I have to find a technology solution. If on startup quality, if the startup does not speak of safety, I will not fund it. On technology and scaling, no one company can solve everything alone. With MIT, we are studying autonomous trucks, and we are now going to publish a paper on this. Now, let's try and understand something in this table. So physical AI means a set of applications, maturity for adoption of I heard the roar of an engine, sorry. And so the maturity to AI approaches, use case. San Francisco, Northern America, the clearest example is robotaxi. But there are other applications. Now, let's focus on public vehicles, light duty vehicles. Let's look at robotaxis. How many metal pieces will we get for 100 million? This perspective is something that I would like to link to another perspective, and namely on the right-hand side, to look at brackets of missions and roles that are changing within mobility. Revenue pool and profit pool. So revenue versus value. What about profit? Both as an OEM, both as a manager of those platforms. What is the revenue? What is the profit? So the revenue and profit pool will change drastically, $10 billion. So this will be the change in terms of legacy automotive. So what is growing? What is changing? The top part. So in the plateau, we're interested in understanding for the future how value and profit pooling have to be reconsidered when managing all these objects. And this is a good news, and we can reflect on that. Now, enablers, vehicles, infrastructure, viability, regulations, and public trust. Well, we have to solve all of these topics. So sensor-based, vision-based, maybe both have to be applied. But now, beyond these topics, let me share a practical example with you. In the US, they are working in the middle mile. They transport to retailers, and they have covered all the headaches and hurdles of their clients. Truck emissions are foreseeable. Distribution centers to store pickup, very clear ways that they have to cover the streets, the motorways. The costs they must be as low as possible, or else it will be unsustainable. You have to be deliverable tomorrow morning, so you have to be very rapid. We do not have drivers. It's a gigantic problem, driver shortage in the US, and safety. So they worked on this project, and it's scalable. OEMs are entering this, also Volvo, but there are other business models starting from softwares, others start from logistics, others start from logistics, mobility, fleets management. So solutions to headaches, to hurdles. And in the US, there are 50 different regulations in force in the different states because they have covered all the shifts to scale, starting the from the pinpoint to the endpoint. And so this is an example of all pain points that have been solved, and this company has managed to solve many headaches. And it's a great example that can boost our optimism. And now I have 2 minutes left, and it's going to be a mission impossible to give you an idea of what the future has in store for us. So here we have EES China, and Europe Legacy is on the left-hand side. Tier 1 suppliers are trying to acquire more space and have a full stack, and to go towards ADAS and enter that world. They are the famous brands that are very well known. No Italians, by the way, in this vision, but it is nonetheless an ongoing vision. So these are some of the many who are making the technology available so as to apply it on L4, which is economically and financially speaking should be the most sustainable. Now, by closing, let me focus and reflect on what we can do. We have design. We have the materials of the future. We have competence and skills by dominions on advanced material. So let me think of the interior of the cockpit. We are human-centric there. We have a great experience, and we can also enter L5. And within Tier 1 and Tier 2, we have specialty. I don't want to enter the topic of a battery and being able to become competitive there, but on other parts, we are highly competent. And since we have seen that you can converge from different points of view, we have spaces that we can conquer and be champions in. So here, we can, with creativity, put together steering, braking, the lighting, and designing a concept that will achieve a super domain where we have numerous possibilities in terms of going forwards successfully. Now, a vehicle with the features respecting regulations and are linked to the legacy of segment A and B, that is functional and operational. In that line of vehicles, the previous speaker showed that we do have space. Mobility of the future is not the vehicle, but an ecosystem that we can focus on and build on. If we educate and train AI in Italy, it's the best way to approach difficulties of mountains, galleries, of mobility infrastructure that can really help us out in terms of smart roads. Beautiful yet complicated as far as mobility is concerned in Italy. Then we have new business models. Also here I can see in front of me Professor Savarese, whom I believe we will listen to. And we focus here on technology, but also on ways of interpreting new business models. So my message here is that notwithstanding the numerous hurdles, there are many, many things that we can do and activate and boost in a very complicated environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for finishing on time, and thanks for talking about things we are now going to delve into. Now we are going to listen to two different points of view. They may be different, they may appear different, but they can also be put together. I would like to welcome Stefano Marzani from one of the tech companies, a global tech company, which is supporting the construction of tools to create the autonomous driving ecosystem. And I also want to welcome Professor Sergio Savaresi. He is professor at the Electronic and Information and Bioengineering at Politecnico in Milan, University Politecnico in Milan. He is involved in the development of new links among the most significant projects in Italy when it comes to autonomous driving. Thank you very much. I would like to start with Mr. Marzani. Mr. Marzani, I'd like to ask you what challenges ahead of autonomous driving. What does prevent autonomous driving from it spreading in the market? Well, these cars create an amount of data, a huge amount of data. Obviously, these cars have to be produced globally because nobody would produce autonomous cars only for Modena, and they have to be deployed globally and on a larger scale because someone must earn from these commercialization. And this is our point of view at WS. We use a cloud, and the cloud is a crucial infrastructure if we really want these cars to be scalable in terms of software development, creation of the product, and deployment of the product. When I talk about cloud, I know that people always refer to cloud as a data center, but actually a cloud is a range of technologies. And this is crucially important if we really want to manage the competitiveness in this very moment. This is a modern way, a modern understanding of the software based on KPI, on the infrastructure of the software. It is based on a geographically constructed KPI. This is extremely important for the scalability of the product. And cloud is not just an abstract thing. It is more and more embedded in the cars. We are talking about data centers on wheels. Clouds are like data centers on wheels, and cars are also data centers of wheels. They are interpreted like that. NVIDIA now is developing many of these products. NVIDIA Thor is an electronic system, and inside of it there is a processor based on APDR, which is Neoverse. Neoverse is the same IP we use in our data center in the Graviton processors. From a structural standpoint, what we define cloud edge parity, a continuity, a continuous line between cloud technology and vehicle, bring us to think that design must be an integrated product between the nature of the product and a very well integrated cloud in order to collect data, in order to develop the software so that we can scale the product. This is a very important combination, a very important partnership between these two aspects. We have been talking about distribution, so I will address now Professor Savaresi to ask him whether we already have a date in which these products will be distributed on a large scale. Would you like to talk to us about this new adventure with New Links? What kind of project is it, and what kind of technology does it use? Thank you for having me. New Links wants to be a champion, wants to lead autonomous driving in the European market. I would like to recall some of the statements made before. We don't think that we have lost this game. In fact, today everybody repeats that the Chinese and the Americans have won the game, but actually we are still in the game. We have not lost yet. Hopefully, Europe will make a decision. Europe cannot just be a market. It must also be a player of these sorts of technology. Europe must count on their own technologies. I think that the fact that Chinese and the Americans are very advanced is okay, but Europe must have a very ambitious project with a Italian heart. In fact, we want to be the Italian heart of this new European strategy. In today's world, we need to have an Italian identity, but with a European perspective. So we want to get the big fish, which is urban mobility. Urban mobility is the segment in which we have most opportunities, more opportunities. We want to create our own path. We don't want to work with robots in the next few years. We don't think that this is the right pathway for Europe for a thousand reasons, because we would be clashing with many prejudices. The European cities and European people are not ready yet to welcome robots. Cities are not ready to welcome and host these robots. So we are developing our own way, our own path in terms of platforms, in terms of commercial choices and strategies. From a technological point of view, I don't know if this sounds interesting to this audience, but I have to say that in the conceptual challenge between end-to-end and AI, so the use of conceptual models and models that function thanks to more deterministic algorithms, well, we believe that the long term will be favored, and the short term is a good technology until L2+. And the fact that today we can perform L3 and L4 in a robust way, well, it has to be proven, because this has huge costs, and a European player cannot face these costs. In fact, we are keeping the two options on. The game is still on, okay, but we use AI in a more selective way. We believe that objectives must be realistic, because the most important factor is time and timing. Hallucination is okay with chatbot, but with the game we play, hallucination is not an option, okay? So our solutions are safety-oriented, because if we really want to introduce such a technology in the European market, we need to pay a lot of attention. We need to be very careful. We need to be reasonable from the point of view of costs. This is our philosophy, and for sure, the ambition is really big. We started with a seed that is extremely important for Italian standards, and now we are working on the second round. Time after time, we want to add a new zero to the final figure. The thing is that the truth is that money is there. We have resources, financial resources. We need to understand how to channel, how to allocate these resources. And this is very important for Italian initiatives. We have been talking about different markets and application of these technologies in different places and countries. Mr. Marzani, who has most advantages in this run, in this race that is technology related? Because some actors have an advantage, like the Chinese and the Americans. If Europe needs to recover this gap, how will it do it, and when will it do it? Well, these players have huge advantages and the huge tools, because they have been working on these tools for years and years. My sons and daughters go to train and go to school with urban mobilities. They live in the US, and they move around the Bay Area with urban mobility, scooters and so on. I think that the game is still open. The game is still on. China has advantages. Okay, that's clear and true, especially when it comes to the vehicle platforms. So yeah, the Chinese have an advantage, but as I said, the game is still open. The game is not over. Initiatives like your links are the proof of the fact that we are trying to recover path, to recover ground, especially when it comes to scalability and software. We need to invest in software. In the columns we showed before, I would have added software. When we talk about software-defined vehicles, I think that we have not understood yet that SDV is a software software-defined vehicle product. So this morning, I appreciated the speech by Mr. Conicella. He has been talking about this together with Jürgen. And this is extremely important. Take a look at the first row, at the first line here, at these first seats, Sergio and his colleagues. In Italy and in Europe, we have the right capacities and abilities to compete in that part of the stack. So we need to start from that stack if we really want to define a new concept, a new idea of mobility. The main obstacles are the fact that architectures must be open. We need to consolidate the architecture of the sector in order to permit the software play. So the industrial stakeholders must be open to this kind of experimentation. And a further problem is the regulations, the excessive regulations, because experimentation needs to be fast. It cannot be hindered by regulations. And then we need to experiment. We need to run experiments, and we need to put the cars and the means of transportation on the field and see how they work. A question for Mr. Savaresi, Professor Savaresi, quite a short one, but a very interesting one at the same time. Is there any comment you have regarding the geographical conformation of our country? Are our medieval villages suitable for autonomous driving? Can this be an obstacle? Well, I think, and we say that this is a differentiating model and trait. We cannot take all the types of autonomous vehicles and bring them to Italy. We need to select what kind of vehicles we want to work with. We need to understand what is our approach from the algorithm point of view. We need to know if we want to use the map-based procedure or another kind of process. I don't think that these are the main obstacles. I mean, the medieval villages are not the main obstacle. The main obstacle is the behavior of users on the road, in the streets. In fact, well, I repeat, I don't think that the geographical organization of our country is a problem. Regarding what Stefano said, and regarding the European limit, I must say that this limit has to be found in platforms. I'm going to criticize the European constructors because all European constructors have developed platforms that are not L3 and L4 ready or friendly. If you take a look inside of these platforms, you realize that they have been developed with the legacy of power units and subsystems of different suppliers. And we can see that if the rest of the world was top class, best class, this platform created barriers at the entry. Now, these barriers are a disadvantage, are reliability. Today, the European business, the manufacturing sector in the automotive sector runs the risk of losing the game. For this reason, because internally, an architecture has been created, and the architecture is a barrier at the entry point. And this is becoming a great disadvantage for our entrepreneurs. Either we develop these, or we will be lost, or we will lose. If you do new links, you must be working on non-European platforms, and this is a pity for all of us. So if you don't act promptly, we will be forced to create full stack platforms. And this is what the other players are doing. You need to start from scratch. If you have giant barriers at the entry point, you need to find an alternative. So hopefully we can resolve the problem with our own resources. This is an enormous liability. We would love to use a European platform, but the game is not easy at all. The fact is not that they don't want us to use these platforms. The fact is that they are tied to this legacy. At the beginning, this was a protective measure, but now it's like a cage, and we cannot escape this cage anymore. Okay, the last question I have for you is safety and security. So data security and security in the streets and transport security, road security, sorry. So we have mines of data. How can we protect this data, and how can infrastructures protect data? I will say that we have two levels. The product is every day more a data center on wheels. We use data centers with all qualifications to prevent these sort of problems of cybersecurity, especially when it comes to the security of the entry data, the access to data. We don't want an LLM to drive a car, obviously. Road safety is crucial. Today, these 100 power units you have in the unit, sorry, these power units you have in the vehicle are a crucial factor. We have experienced these supply chain attacks very recently. Some software libraries have been introduced in the software programming, and these end up in the product. So you cannot access the code of some of these libraries, and this is a tangible risk. What is in the vehicle must stay in the vehicle. What needs to control the vehicle cannot be subject to any sort of opening or connectivity that can influence the dynamics of the vehicle because someone is hacking that device. The famous accident of that SUV in the United States because someone took control of that car in the US. Well, we must control architecture and best practices because they are crucial things in this game. I don't know if you read about Anthropic and methods. Well, regarding this thing, we are now opening a new chapter, and personally, I think that today we need to use agents if we want to work on cybersecurity and improve it. And this is urgent. Thank you. And what about road safety? How important is it to test these vehicles on the road instead of testing them in a protected area or environment? What is the difference? This is a new Links project started recently, but actually we have years and years of research and data behind the launch. At the very beginning, when we started to deal with these sort of activities, I've always been obsessed of testing and trying the vehicle in a public road. Obviously, before we must test. We had to test it in a simulated environment, then in a protected environment, and then in the public roads and streets. What you see in the public streets is much richer than what we have in a simulation. So I wanted to test these things in the public streets as soon as possible because what you can learn there is unparalleled, is unprecedented. Because you really public streets and roads are the place in which you can learn the most. I would like to close by saying that our strategy to access Europe is being focused on low-speed applications. Please do not forget that the motorway, which could appear as the easiest environment because it's straight and there is not so much traffic jam, well, actually, it has a problem. Motorway has a problem. In fact, you cannot allow any mistake when you are running, when you are driving at 140 kilometers per hour. You cannot allow any safety or security safe stop. So the problem arises, the problem become bigger with the increase in speed. So we needed to develop use cases testing speed. These use cases have a more manageable risk perimeter, and the error, the mistake can be managed. This is, I think this remark elaborates on what my colleague said. This paradigm should be used before we access the market. Thank you very much for your session, guys. Thank you.
Grazie a voi. Grazie a te.
Very well, we can now move on. Now we are going to have fun because we are going to talk about regulations. There are so many regulations ahead of us from different countries, from different areas. Luckily, I can count on Mario Nobile, General Director at AGID. Ugo Fozzati, Chief Business Officer at Tensor Auto. and Matteo Barale, Chief Innovation Officer at Technocad. So, I will start with you, Mr. Nobile. As we said, this is a technology that must function everywhere. It is a global technology, and this makes things much more difficult. Can you describe the state of the art of regulations? Thank you. First of all, there is no Brussels effect here. What we usually repeat in Europe, what we usually say in Europe is that we are very proud of ourselves because we can regulate and regulate. There is no Brussels effect here. The effect we had in terms of GDPR, GDPR had some effects in the US, and these effects reproduced the same approach. In the AI industry, China as making regulations for years and years, since 2017. One of the last ones was the one regarding emotional AI. In the meantime, we remind, we ask our sons and daughters not to use a chatbot to get sentimental advices. On the other hand, the Chinese have regulated this. So there are so many differences among the states and among the use states make of AI. President Trump was about to sign an executive order to block these regulations. I could be talking about Peru, about Mexico, other countries like Ecuador, and so many other countries and markets around the world. But the answer to your question is that, globally speaking, there are many, many attempts to regulate AI. The difficult thing here is level 5. I had the chance to listen to the speech of Professor Salvaresi, and while he was talking about the full stack platforms, I was thinking about our automotive sector, which blocked the onboard diagnostics. Our automotive sector proudly didn't want to open to third parties for the maintenance, and now they are being affected by the consequences of this pride. In order not to make the same mistake, we must think about level 5. Now, saying these things is easy because I am in front of an audience like you. Try to think how it is when I talk in front of lawyers. Level 5 today doesn't exist. And without speaking about the MIT or the moral machine, level number 5 is very difficult. It's very hard to use on road. Having a small car without wheels, without steering wheel, and without gear is difficult. I do research, and we all do research. I've been in this very sector, in this very world for years and years. Now I see some old faces who are familiar to me, but we know for sure that at level 5 we could be working. The problem is that at an insural level, when it comes to rules, when it comes to full stack platform, level 5 becomes a harder game. So level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, rules are there, they are ready. There is not a great deal of global need, but when it comes to level 5, things become different and things become more difficult. From July 18 to the 20th, I've been invited in China for the World Conference on AI. It's a summit, it's an AI summit. So even China is considering the idea at level 5 to create the idea of creating global platforms, as it was done in a Sunak government in the UK, as it was tested at the G7, because level 5 must count on larger applications than Italy, China, United States, or other countries around the world. This topic is so large, so vast and complex that no country has the same approach. So I would like to ask the other panelist about the approach of his company. Thank you. everybody. I'm delighted of being here, especially after 25 years when I had the chance to be a trainee at Ducati. Now, before you judge my poor Italian and before you make fun of me, I would like to switch to English. If you need translation, please use the QR code, and if you do not have the headset, please get them at the entrance.
Tensor is a physical AI and embodied intelligence company. We were founded 10 years ago in Silicon Valley, and we've been doing one thing and one thing only, and that's level 4 autonomous driving. About 8 months ago, in August of 2025, we unveiled our first product, and that is the world's first level 4 vehicle that you can buy. That's right, it's the first vehicle that you can have in your garage. Now you might be asking, why we did this. Well, at a high level, it boils down to safety. So in the world today, there's about 1.2 million deaths per year. These are traffic-related deaths. And over 90% of these deaths are human error related. So these are deaths that can be avoided. I would say at a lower level, retrofitting cars, I heard about some people talk about that earlier today. Retrofitting cars doesn't work. It works to do a robotaxi service, yes. It works to a certain point. About 5 years ago, we had the largest fleet in the entire industry. We had over 1,000 cars in 6 major cities, covering 1,000 square kilometers. So what we learned is that the only way to do this safely is to build something from the ground up. And that's what we did at Tensor. If you want to check it out, it's tensor.auto. They wouldn't let me put it up on the screen, but take it on your phones and tensor.auto. It looks really cool. Again, it's the first car built from the ground up specifically for level 4 that you can have in your garage. It's also agentic. We've taken it one step further because we've been doing nothing else for the last 10 years. We've taken it a step further, and you can actually talk to the car. It's working for you instead of 90% of the time, like we've all been here for the last 5 hours, and our cars have been parked outside somewhere doing nothing, gathering dust, depreciating, unless it's a very nice Ferrari or Porsche or something. It's probably depreciated as we've been speaking here today. However, I think it's time for that notion to end. And with AI, the car can now work for you, and that's exactly what we've built. And look, I understand. I love cars. I also love to drive. I would love to drive, in these beautiful hills here in Emilia-Romagna, in the Stelvio Pass, along the beach. Of course, I absolutely would love to drive. Maybe this one here. Hello? Oh, great. Thank you. But I don't know anybody around the world that loves to drive in traffic, right? I mean, Rome is beautiful, Modena is beautiful. These are beautiful Italian cities, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't matter how beautiful they are. Nobody really wants to drive staring at somebody else's license plate, right? And inhaling the fumes, right? Just nobody. So that's why we've actually also built the world's first vehicle that has volante pieghevole, is the first foldable steering wheel ever put inside of a production car in history. It's really cool. Again, check it out on tensor.auto. There's a video of it. We've done this with the largest tier 1 suppliers in the world, Autoliv, Bosch, ZF, so on and so forth. So the other things that we've done in this car, again, because this car was built from the ground up, we've been able to perfect the experience. So not only do we have the world's first foldable steering wheel, but we've been able to install 100 sensors. We've taken a very, very sensor-rich approach. It's the only way this technology is going to work. And again, it comes back to safety. So we have 5 LiDARs, 37 cameras, 6 radars. Now, these are not just off-the-shelf sensors. There are only 2 companies in the world that make their own LiDAR. That's Waymo and Tensor. So Tensor, these are our own, it's the most powerful LiDAR that's ever been made in history, that's ever been put inside of a vehicle. It emits 25.6 million beams per second. It's a massive thing, but it's super important because without LiDAR, it's not gonna work safely. Despite the big LiDAR, it still has a better drag coefficient than the Ferrari Luce. It has a 0.253 drag coefficient. I think the Luce has a 0.254. Anyway, we don't have to divert, but it also has 17 megapixel cameras. I think Tesla has around 5. I think Waymo just announced that they're now going up to 17, so it's nice to see the rest of the players catch up with us. It's also the first radar that sees both static objects and moving objects. So this is all proprietary technology that we've built in-house. We're probably the most vertically integrated company in the entire industry. So everything is ours from A to Z, all the software, all the design of the hardware, everything there is. And you know, again, all of this was done for safety, right? Retrofitting vehicles like the rest of the industry is doing. Not everyone, I've seen a couple of home-built products, which is amazing. I'm so happy to see that. But really, the rest of the robotaxi industry that are retrofitting, you know, you're compromising the metal. I don't need to say it here in the heart of Emilia Romagna, but you know, you're drilling holes in a car, right? You're adding on sensors, it doesn't scale. It's dangerous, and it's not what we as a society deserve. If we're gonna own something in our garage, right, it has to be purpose-built for the specific use case. Just like a Formula One car is not driven around city, it's driven on a racetrack, because that's its intended use case. I also heard a couple people talk about security, which I think is very important, especially for Europe, and GDPR, and so forth. This is the world's first vehicle that has end-to-end encryption. So just like Telegram or whatever, when you talk to your car, when you talk to your robocar, the data doesn't go to some cloud and get monetized. This is what Elon is doing. This is what all the Chinese guys are doing. Whatever they tell you, they're monetizing it, believe me. Ours, we don't need to do that. We don't want to get that data. That data should stay, and it does stay, in the car at the chip level, just like your phone. So we've done this specifically for privacy. This is another reason why we built this car, is because who the hell wants to live in a world where you're controlled by some central robotaxi company, where your data is getting monetized? You are the product. That is a terrible world to live in. We want to live in a world where you own your autonomy, you own your vehicle. This is, you know, Italy has one of the highest vehicle ownership per families in the world. It should stay that way, and privacy should stay that way. Anyway, these are some of the reasons what we've done. You asked me how we're going to market. Well, last thing, and then I'll shut up. But basically, we're launching in the Middle East later this year. US and Europe are to follow in 2027. These are our 3 launch markets. We're launching in markets where people really value safety, security, and something that, again, has built from the ground up. So anyway, thank you very much.
Dr. Marinoni earlier was said, come on, let's stay positive, optimistic, etc. But now, when talking about automotive, we are pessimistic. We can really breathe this pessimistic idea. Now, I would like from Technocad, Matteo Barale, to speak about their way of developing the autonomous driving. Now, let me just open by saying that I have returned to Europe. Previously, I was responsible of a company developing robotaxis in China, and Europe was the marketplace for me. But unluckily, nobody was following me in terms of safety in department in China. And this is a very heavy-duty challenge in Europe. Passing ISOs and certifications is quite hard. To be compliant in Europe means to acquire from New Zealand products. We have seen, nonetheless, that the market is available in Italy and in Europe. So this is one of the reasons why I have come back to Europe from China and the US. I'm back to Europe. Let's eliminate the American and Chinese OEMs and even the European ones, which consider ongoingly the traditional step from legacy cars to EVs and to driverless cars. Well, it's an optimistic viewpoint. 4 years ago, all of the driverless vehicles were for goods. It's the so-called store on wheels project. Stellantis will present in Hanover, September, is a vehicle that offers transport for goods. Now, when talking about people, well, this is not an overarching topic. When speaking about driverless cars, I was immediately, concerned with the safety of children. They really know what to expect when speaking of driverless cars. They're curious, they touch it, they feel it, they're quite accepting driverless vehicles, and even seniors accept these vehicles. The Google car, when it was launched, the video showed seniors driving on the cars around 60, 70, 80 years of age. And they tried the driverless car and they were surprised, happy. And the Luce was launched with the Pope, with Mattarella. So we will see what happens at Ferrari. So again, going back to returning to Italy in a Technocad company, the Turin-based company, and we have always at Technocad moved into the automotive sector, and in this framework. Driverless vehicles do not only present their possibilities to driverless vehicles that are going to replace classic automotive vehicles, but will widen, broaden the scope of the ways in which we design these objects. So we, in fact, delve in automotive, yes, but farming, aerospace, food delivery. We're also collaborating with NASA as far as aerospace is concerned. And so these projects, when we are pessimistic, is saying that these projects are not scalable. So, all of our projects have been one-off. To achieve a relevant scalability, we have to network amongst manufacturers. Even if we have 500 engineers working at Technocad, you cannot make the difference. Maybe a German model or Chinese model can be the players when joining forces. And maybe a champion will come to the surface and will be a partner. And when building a project or vehicle together, we can be champions in Italy. We are champions in manufacturing in Italy. And thanks to special projects, we can really leap into the future of driverless vehicles. So starting from goods and then shifting to people, as I said, children and seniors. My goodness, we can't network in the same continent. You can imagine how difficult it is on the global scale. Now, to conclude, a question to the three of you. What should Italy and Europe do in order to bridge this regulatory gap? Because the difficult aspect is that of performing a road test. Yes, the grip to off-road, it was really a very difficult delivery. It took longer than delivering a child after pregnancy. So I explain to my customer whether I am profiting on the data or not. And that's a choice. And I want the clients to be aware of the customer, the manufacturer, and also the other parties. Now, it's 15 years that we have been analyzing the issues. One, energy cost, no longer sustainable. In this beautiful land, the unit price of energy is more than 120 euro per megawatt hour for those who manufacture. It's an unsustainable price. So either we manufacture the hardware of cars, so the chassis, the body, somewhere else, or else we have to shift to different types of energy, maybe nuclear power energy, but it requires time. Then second issue, capitals. Capitals are available, and saving on the welfare and pension funds is 400 billion per year. 1% of this would be too much, maybe. And third element, rules, regulations. We've been speaking about this topic quite broadly, and Professor Bertone, Professor Savaresi, I've talked to various colleagues. We are aware of all the initiatives at Politecnico, and therefore, I state that we should really change the rules. We need an amendment to rules and have national projects that are tested beforehand. His dream was, I want to create a level 4 car that I can test. And for this, stakeholders, technicians and engineers have to explain that this is not level 5, because very often bureaucracy, politicians, certifying institutes, homologation institutes, customers who have to buy the object have a dystopic idea of this project, and they may be experts on that. They will receive many questions on this aspect. Level 4, what does it mean? We will support and help it out, but we will not leave the final decision as regards all the operational domains, as the technicians in the room know. So we will have coverage and control over ODTs. So production. a rapid amendment of homologation regulations that have been passed, not a prototype, a one-off project, but scalable projects so that we can have 100, 1,000, 10,000 models, or else we will be perfect when writing down the rules, but not being able to offer practical solutions to problems. So the $1 million question, you have 3 seconds each. We've run out of time. When will we be out of this room and have a driverless car? Next year?
No. Maybe this doesn't work. Hello, yeah. So, faccio in inglese, scusa. So, as the future is already here, right? You live in the Bay Area. People are preferring to go in a Waymo, right, than in a human-driven car. So there's no question anymore. It's just the future is not distributed evenly. So it's not even a question anymore. It's the role of the human driver is already inferior. The data has come out. So level 4 is absolutely a perfect scenario. It doesn't need to work everywhere. It just needs to work in the right areas. But you asked cosa dobbiamo fare qui in Italia. Noi
Our model is like an android. We've built this model like a vehicle, but as an android, we can license our technology to other OEMs. And in fact, our first manufacturer is VinFast, based in Vietnam, an OEM, which will be the first ones to manufacture our vehicle this year. We've already built more than 250, and right now they are traveling around the world for the homologation for our markets where we want to launch. I believe that Italy has many factories, many OEMs that might launch this technology into the pipeline and learn how to do that and use their brands, their design that they're so excellent at doing, and launch it. So I believe we can really wait. We can't really wait. This is the right time. June, by the way, there will be discussions in Brussels regarding European rules enforced in Europe. So let's hope that things are maintained still simple, no complexities, more startups, more companies that will be able to develop these technologies. Barale and then Nobile. When will we see these first autonomous driving vehicles on the road? Well, the road signage and the rules of driving on the roads are actually being reviewed, so we'll need to see what will happen there. We have to wait for that decision to be made. Tesla is an L4, an L2. It will be interesting to see what happens there. There will be foreign players, that's for sure. They are coming to Europe, and they can really push and lobby for different types of regulation. In Italy, in fact, in some areas, in some territories, you can experiment. Here we have a Masa in Turin. We have various hubs, even in Milan. So there will be specific territories where we can test out all of these concepts, and we can already see today, at present, what is feasible. What about you, Mr. Nobile? Well, the date is already overdue Since 2018, there have been many experimentations that I have personally permitted, given authorization to Masa, Turin, the hubs. We have seen an important experimentation in Parma with VisLab's project by Professor Broggi. He's not here. I start thinking that we are closer and closer in Abu Dhabi and China and now the Far East and Middle East. There are more connections in terms of making driverless and autonomous driving more feasible. A couple of weeks ago, I achieved the possibility of obtaining a supervisor for level 4 vehicles. So it is a very complex scenario. Professor Savaresi has already said that there are complexities. How can we replace the 37 million vehicles that are driven in Italy to become autonomous? So we have to start thinking. We will, little by little, change our idea of mobility. We will change our idea of ownership of cars or vehicles. And little by little, we will get used to seeing these autonomous driving vehicles around the cities and in the on the road. But being Italian, we will need to stick to the beauty of looks and aesthetics. Thank you very much for your presence here. Now, let's move forward. We have focused on technology and regulation, and now let's look at the application into the various fields, starting from logistics to motorsports. In this last roundtable, Marco Bertogna, full professor at the physics department of the Modena and Reggio Emilia University, full professor of mathematics and physics. Good morning. Simone Ragnolini, Google Cloud. Stefano Carnier, executive director of Ascari. Stefan Timpano, CEO of Aspire. Savino Sciusco, Business Development Manager, Automobility of DHL Supply Chain Italy, and Ottavio Santoro, Senior Manager of Poste Italiane.
Let's now talk about motorsports, which is the most curious sector. I would like to ask Stefan Timpano, CEO of Aspire, how did your solution contribute to the development of autonomous drive? Before we talk about ERL, I would like to spend a few words regarding what we said before. Aspire is part of a research center in Abu Dhabi funded by the government, and it works on different technologies that are necessary for the sovereignty in Abu Dhabi. What we did before was defense, because we had to protect ourselves in the war against Iran, and this was crucial because the country managed to defend itself. It's about 1,400 of us, and 140 are Italians. One or three or four are leaders, are managers, and you can connect this with the fact that in Italy we have a lot of talent, people who have developed their competencies and then they left, they went abroad. This is important, and I think that in Italy we should take home these competencies and these talents because they are crucial if we really want to develop these plans ahead of us. Coming back to your question, 4 years ago, an initiative was started. Sergio was involved as well, and this initiative was under the leadership of the presidency. According to the leadership, we had to find a way to prove people that autonomy can work, because the Emirates are one of those countries like US and China in which there was a strong push to create human-sized test bed, human-oriented test bed to test hundreds of cars to the roads, to the streets. And 2RL does it with similar cars to F1. These cars are manufactured by Dallara. They are used in Japan in a racing competition. We took this car, we extracted the human model, we inserted an autonomous module, and we have two Italian teams, one at Modena and one at Politecnico. We assigned them identical cars. What did they do? They introduced the intelligence in these cars. What are these competitions for? Well, this competition, these races are useful to prove people that these things work. In Abu Dhabi, we received more than 10,000 people, 10 million views in the last race. And it is needed to prove that Abu Dhabi is able to do things locally in the Arab Emirates, in which we have about 500 vehicles between Abu Dhabi and Dubai. These vehicles are fully autonomous. These cars are traveling around like in the San Francisco Bay or like in China. We are building credibility. Credibility is paramount. Credibility of the user, from the side of the users, because users that in the future will put their wives, husbands, sons and daughters in that car. They will buy a car for their sons and daughters, and they must trust the cars. If you do this in Rome, it's even worse, because in Rome traffic jam is awful. In Abu Dhabi is it's quieter, because there are a few people, and we will also need to convince and to persuade insurance companies. Until you have one or two traveling around the city, that's not a big problem, that's not a big deal. But when you have hundreds and hundreds of autonomous cars traveling around town, it will be more difficult. So how will they make their own decision? How will robots make their own decisions? We need to work straight away in order to build the acceptation of these things. Let's remain in the university, at the university level, which is the level at which people are trained. These are the places in which people study. So, Professor Bertoni, what contribution did a university give to these technologies, and where are these technologies employed on a large scale? Universities are paramount in order to create these sorts of technologies. The talks of today have been crystal clear, and I love that. I love to share the positive note of regarding Europe. Europe is still in this game. As someone has mentioned, this type of challenge in which European universities, the one I work for, the one Sergio works for, are the ones that battle for the first three places in the ranking. From this point of view, the way we teach changes over time. I'm a professor, I'm an investor, I'm a full-time professor, and since I became an entrepreneur, since I started to deal with these applications, I modified my style of teaching, and I can see that students really want to learn. They are hungry. They want to know the way their work will change when they will work, once they will work in the factories. You can see this easily every day. The cost of the cars was very much focused on electronics and now on IT. Car companies do not find the right talents. And at our university, Unimore, we have invested a lot in this kind of technologies. The Motor Vehicle University has been mentioned in other sessions, and in Emilia-Romagna we are trying to tackle this need and this challenge. But this is not enough. In fact, there is a huge gap between university and companies, and we need to bridge this gap. This is a message I always address to politicians and to all the local and national bodies that can make the difference. University is not enough. University can train people, but professors, lecturers are not even assessed for this kind of activity. When I talk to students, I know that they are judged in terms of number of articles read. They are not judged in terms of practical things. American universities are in a better position compared to us. They have spin-off. They usually launch successful businesses in the US, and as these businesses come to Europe. So we need universities to be more successful, more practical. We need to create something at an academic level that makes students more practical. On the other hand, the industry companies are much focused on universities. We are lacking financing and funding. Italian industry is from small to medium. It is very difficult to access this kind of funding in Italian industries. I work for one of the biggest ones. I deal with sustainable development, and autonomous driving is very much related to sustainable development. Well, companies would have the funds and the money, but the thing is that in order to get the right funding, like it happened with Sergio, I mean, getting the right funding is almost impossible. I think that Sergio made a miracle. In fact, he managed to collect millions. General Bionics managed to do the same, but these are just a few cases. The others are just competing. China does not create one champion. China creates 4 champions, and then China lets champions compete among each other. I think we are lacking this piece. We are lacking this configuration, this setting. I conclude with a positive note, with a positive comment. Alberto Broggi participated in technological challenges, but today these challenges are just racing challenges, drone challenges. In this very moment, in this period, some companies are innovating more, and we participate in those activities, but there are a few actors that are creating challenges like this. So we only see China, Berkeley University, the Americans, they do all the stuff, but then we need to be practical. We need everybody. We need the farming sector, Pirelli, Stellantis, and companies like Ferrari to get support in what we do, because while Sergio, my colleagues, and I put the technology, someone has to put financing. We have been talking about financing and funding, especially when it comes to startups. Startups usually start with a great load of enthusiasm, but then they have to find the right funding. So, Stefano Carnier from Ascari, with the resources a startup can get access to, how can they play the game? Good morning, everyone. I would like to spend a few words describing the profile of Ascari. I can easily reconnect with what was said today. We were born in the Prosta Varese. We were born in the Prosta Varese team, and we are part of the Polymove team that participated in the autonomous driving competitions. We still do that. 3 months ago, sorry, but we cannot hear the sound. Sometimes the sound goes away, fades away. Well, Ascari was the name of the virtual pilot driver that competed in the autonomous driving competitions. Then we developed it, and Ascari became a coach of mixed driving. By focusing on the technology we had developed, which is the base of everything, we exploited it. We took chance of it to let people have fun on the racetrack. We drive on a racetrack because driving in a traffic jam is not fun at all. On the other hand, on a racetrack, you can push, you can accelerate, you can brake at the very last meter. You can just feel your passion, a passion that is vivid in Italy. Now, coming to your question. How to success with limited funding? Well, you need ideas, you need to be brave, and you need to find market niche, like the racetrack. In Italy, there are so many successful companies and brands developing supercars. These brands see the racetrack as a good opportunity. and there are more and more motorsport clubs, experiences dedicated to people who are fond of motorsports. Here people can have fun and be passionate. We use our technology, which is the autonomous driving technology, and our goal is to use the dynamic character of a startup to work in this small business, this niche business, which is growing, and we think we can pay a contribution to this acceleration. Lately, we have collected the first good answers, good feedback from the automotive world, from startups who want to collaborate with us. Startups have realized that they can be a resource. We strongly believe in this, and we push hardly towards this direction. One of the most favorable fields is logistics. In fact, logistics is one of the sectors in which autonomous driving can be developed. I would like to ask Savino Sciusco from DHL, what is your experience in this, and what could you tell us about this logistics sector? I represent the DHL supply chain, so the logistic contracts of the DHL group, which is specialized in managing spare parts. We have prepared a section of the company on purpose to do a sort of simulation, a sort of virtual simulation in which we guarantee our customers that their spare parts arrive on time, are delivered on time. This is our view when it comes to autonomous driving and when it comes to shifting and moving products. For sure, Poste Italiane plays a fundamental role when it comes to moving objects, sending and delivering objects, or delivering the mail, sorry. You have been working at the national level, you have been traveling around the whole country. I would like to ask Ottavio Santoro from Poste Italiane, how did you develop autonomous driving in Poste Italiane, and what expectations are you having for the next few years? Do you have any tangible program? Sorry. Good morning. I represent here today the innovation team when it comes to functioning model at Poste Italiane. This team is especially focused on three fields: technological innovation on one hand, logistic mobility, integrated logistic mobility on the other, and economic sustainability of these models. These three pillars led us through one of our programs related to autonomous driving. The National Center for Sustainable Mobility fostered these programs, and in fact this national center started a very intensive collaboration with the academia, with universities, and this was crucial for us. In fact, our university in Reggio Emilia, here represented by Mr. Bertogna, runs a very good and prosperous collaboration to develop a vehicle named Boxy. We call it Boxy. It was designed and made by Kona Design Group after a public tender. This is the video, and you can easily notice in this video that box is made of two different sides. One side is dedicated to the internal logistics of Poste Italiane, the other side has been made for an end customer logistics. We have radar technologies in order to acquire data regarding the context in which the vehicle travels around. You have also use case internal logistics when it comes to refilling. You will see these things in the video. On the other hand, when it comes to the end consumer, the end customer, we could imagine a use case of pickup and delivery on call, on demand. So it is very easy. Through an application, a digital interface, you can book, you can withdraw, you can deliver a pack. You, as a final user, you get a notification, you go to the mobile locker, you try to open the locker, and you can easily withdraw or deliver the pack. After that, the pack will be handled and managed by Poste Italiane. A further potential use case for the end consumer is the dynamic management and handling of the withdrawing and delivery phase in different parts of the city. We have analyzed the traffic, the most packed areas of the city. So the locker will no longer have the same function of withdrawing and delivering. It will rather be a moving locker. Regarding Follow Me, something you must have appreciated in the video, well, this is a new functionality. It deals with the ability of the vehicle of monitoring the distance from the post officer, the postman. The objective is helping the postman or woman to handle weights higher than 500 kilos. You can see the simulation on the right. In this video, you can easily see the simulation of the postman or woman. This is the red dot. The green dots are stopping stations. When the postman gets to the delivery point, the vehicle has a scheduled itinerary. It stops, it waits for the postman to come back, and when the postman comes back to the vehicle follows the postman until the next stop. This is a simulation. You can see the vehicle moving around. This has been developed thanks to University Unimore, and it is still being developed. Our idea when it comes to the long-run development is based on two main axes. The first one is technological evolution, and the second one is validation and operational integration. The first thing is because you can easily prepare a model and you can easily apply it to simulations in a private context, in a protected context. We know that there are different levels: the controlled context, the protected context, the private context, and then the public context at the end. Obviously, before you get to the public context and the public application, you must go through different steps. The main thing here, the main objective is that we progress slowly, step by step, developing the vehicle, growing in terms of complexity until the vehicle is ready to travel on road, on a public road. On the other hand, the technological evolution has to do with the development of the algorithm, the validation, and the continuous testing on the ground. Now, drawing to the conclusion, we see autonomous driving as a technology, but actually for Poste Italiane, autonomous driving is an enabler of new cooperation models, new logistic models, and especially new services dedicated to the customers. So this is a range of services for internal and end customers. Thank you. Now, if you want to put your hands together, you can do it. For every millimeter of road, for every autonomous driving, we have so many data, millions and millions of data that have to be stocked and controlled. I would like to ask Simone Ragnolini how important are Google Cloud services for autonomous driving and what will be the role in the daily usage of vehicles and in their assistance and maintenance, so also in the post application. Aren't you hungry, guys? Don't you want to eat something? After 5 years since my last speech in the Silicon Valley regarding autonomous driving, we are asking the same questions we were wondering about 5 years ago. I would like to act like a Google search today. So I would like to provide you some information regarding the context, regarding an upper scaler, whether it is DHL, IAS, Microsoft, it's the same. The example I would like to make an example of a stair. An escalator, okay? We are put this case. We are trying to use an escalator without using the first steps that are broken, okay? In this escalator, the first steps are broken. Our friend at AVS said that the autonomous driving today is a data center on wheels. Data center on wheels is a sort of vacuum expression, a vacuum term. Considering the data we provided the US government with, this data referred to a volume, an amount of data generated by a car in one day, and it ranges from 4 to 10 terabytes. 4 to 10 terabytes doesn't mean anything. They don't mean anything. I will give you an idea thinking about the real world. Try to think that you are sitting down on your sofa watching Netflix in streaming 24/7. It would take 5 months, 5 months to consume the same amount of data generated by one car in a single day. If you think about the fleets of many important car businesses, car companies, Tesla, Stellantis, but also all the OEMs. Well, in terms of management of data, what an hyperscaler can do is making sure that that data is handled in a cloud environment, in a cloud context that allows the harmonization and protection of data itself. And the second thing that I have listened so often today, the second message I listened today is the adoption. But at the same time, we are scared, we are concerned of accessing a car that has no driver. So adoption goes with fears. We are concerned of traveling from point A to point B without any idea, without knowing who is driving, and knowing that a computer is driving for us on behalf of us. I would like to offer you a more technological standpoint. I will act as the Google stand of the situation.
So let's imagine that a driver has just gotten his or her license. I give the example of my kid in February. He will get his new license. He has started to learn to drive, and what he learns is to drive with snow, with rainfall, with extreme traffic, wind, etc. Now, driverless cars and autonomous driving, the concept we're trying to develop, requires a real-time management of data. But this, if I have a scooter overpassing me from the right-hand side on a stony road whilst it's raining, the car learns, is trained to what is occurring, learns this and makes it available to the whole fleet of driverless cars around the planet. So to give you the concept I'd like to focus on, Google and all the others are working on a concept that allows for knowledge sharing and also safety protection. One last point I'd like to draw your attention to, so as to explain how we're working together with other players, together with the Politecnico here in Milan and other universities around the globe, is the concept of giving worth and value to the final experience of driverless autonomous driving for predictive analysis. And let me speak about this aspect in the simplest manner possible. We all need to control and check the reality situation. We have smartwatches that measure our heartbeat and try to prevent any accident or any disease. And we are trying to develop the same technology for cars. So the red light showing that we are lacking oil, we are lacking petrol, we are going to wreak havoc to the car because there's an engine problem. Well, all this has been designed in a predictive manner, so the car itself will understand that any small vibration on a mechanical component be turned into a request for assistance that will be managed autonomously. Now, closing, I'd like to say that it's wonderful to talk to attendees like you, traditional experts. We are linked to style, to beautiful aesthetics. We are used to beauty and good ingredients, as in the fashion world, in agro-food. So in the automotive sector, we really need to share knowledge, to be grounded, and share the importance of data sharing. This does not exist yet. It is only offered to users as reporting or tools that little by little will receive a structure or an architecture within a company, but will not allow us to grab the escalator and go to apply this knowledge to the real world. Now, very last question for the roundtable. Now, a wish. Had you a magic wand, were you to say what we're lacking to get the final impetus to deploy this technology in Italy and in the world, what would your wish be? What are we lacking? What is the extra last mile we're lacking? As you were saying, and even Marco was saying, technology is far ahead. It is advanced. We are missing some parts, but with AI, we'll get there. But we will have a terrible problem, namely regulations. Very often, governments are not in line with the rules because in Europe, we would expect regulations to be adopted and transposed linearly all around the member states. So we run into a situation of constraints. Now, the regulators, the lawmakers, are thinking of a license for autonomous vehicles. Your kid is now going to acquire the driving license, and now a Chinese vehicle arrives to the European territory and will need to pass a test so as to acquire the licensing. So the administrative part will really be a constraint. The technology has to be in line with the administrative and bureaucratical line of things so as to adopt things as rapidly as possible. As far as I am concerned, let me focus back onto the intensive need of capitals required. It's not 1 to 10, it's 1 to 100. So it's, companies being launched in Italy, in the US, they start with 5 billion. And so we have different scopes, different values. I have 7 people, and other companies have 7,000 headcount. So there are numerous aspects that we may consider positive and optimistic. So it's not a fast mover, but a second best, as Stefan and Mario Nobili have said. Now, safety, my dear friends, is where we are going to play the match. We need a level playing field. So Europe will be probably a champion here. We'll see what happens. We'll see how China moves around safety. So I do agree with all the things that my colleagues said, but the most important aspect is to be operative together, to be bold. Let's not be afraid or concerned. Let's move forward together with a united Europe so as to have an advantage vis-à-vis China and the US. Now, going back to regulations, I'd like to go back there because I'm comparing two different worlds that we're trying to observe and to ride the wave of. We have some regulation on advanced mobility, so we know the joys and pains of that sector. We know what we can achieve, but if we were to design a roadmap ahead, we know how to move because we have knowledge of the limits. On the second part, that I have highlighted, regulations are key. If we don't overcome this constraint, we'll never go forward. Thanks for the question. We're lacking courage in Europe. We are lacking the desire of, participating to challenges, which means sometimes losing a battle. That doesn't mean that you have failed, but that you have been able to experience and learn. So one last aspect, still focusing on courage, is compared to the software-defined vehicles. If you conceive SDV on an airplane, the cost is around 15,000 code lines. So a driverless plane requires 10,000, 15,000 rows or lines of code. On a car, we have 100,000 lines of code to get SDV, and we will shift to 300,000. Let me compare it to books. 10,000 lines of code are 200 pages. Then if we move up, it's like 10 million of pages that we have to read, understand, exploit, and leverage. There are tons of possibilities. Failing does not mean losing. Losing is not failing, so we're really lacking courage and boldness. Yeah, my bit, we still have uncertainties at legal level, so we cannot perform some tests. In the US, we can perform spot tests because in certain states of the US, regulation is at a more advanced level, and therefore we are able to perform them. So this aspect of rules and regulations, really needs our attention. Well, we can wrap up. Thank you very much for your kind attention.